I feel like the fact that I never actually set up an alarm, or rather, I took off the alarm that I had for um, this weekly reflection, might actually be part of a series of tests that I'm attempting to put myself through, where I'm curious to see what will happen if I try and raise myself to a specific point of productivity and then let myself free fall and basically do whatever I see fit. Because I have more or less a theory that there is like uh, a curve of exponential growth after which you can't necessarily fall back before a certain point, so long as you keep retaining the rational mind of a human like person. I think that I have an innate sense of desire for growth, and this will potentially keep driving me forward, even on days where like today. Today was a day that I didn't even want to get out of bed, and yet here I still find myself not only getting out of bed and doing my daily routines quicker than I would normally have if I were having a normal or relaxed day, but also still trying to find ways to better myself in the process. And I feel like on days like this, it's something that comes even more naturally. On days when I don't feel my best, it feels more logical for me to try and push myself to be more than I am, because I think I can somewhat recognize that I am not all that I could be on days like today. But the question ends up being if I could get a disconnect between days like today and days that are just normal days. Because I have a problem where on days that I am not feeling dour, I have well, I'm still working on it, but currently I have a difficulty with acknowledging my power, my abilities, and like being willing to say that I am enough, that I am good enough, that I am strong enough, that I am able to be everything that I want to be. And it's a very strange occurrence where it's why I used to think that I thrive in something akin to chaos, is because when things are going well, I feel physically weaker. I don't know if that's a mental thing. It might be, but it's harder for me to be the amount of disconnected that I am when things are dangerous or chaotic. Um, on days that things are going well, because I tend to just want to go with it. So sometimes I end up getting too caught up in trying not to enjoy things, but then I end up doing it for the wrong reasons. There's a whole impartiality that I'm trying to aim for. Like, I want to treat everybody the same, and I have a problem where I tend to treat certain people with favor. And I guess that's mostly a me problem, yeah. And it ends up leading to nothing but additional problems as I go, where, uh, like, currently I have a person who's a very good friend of mine. I have difficulty internalizing the fact that they actually enjoy my presence, even though they tell me, but I enjoy their presence. So, and they're saying that we are very close, and this feeling is something that is hard for me to internalize, because when I try and say that to them, they don't seem to respond, but when they say it to me, it feels like it's the weight of the world. These types of feelings and thoughts are obviously stronger than what it would be to just another person on the street, or just, a person that I'm working with. So, is there a way to mediate this? The obvious answer is yes, and it would require being able to step back from any given situation. And this has been my most Herculean task, is stepping back. So I've been also contemplating personal growth, and the thing that I've realized is that a lot of my problems come from avoidance. So I think that currently today's thing will be trying to avoid avoidance rather than avoiding something in particular, because usually it's avoid whatever you don't want to do, and then realize that that's what you need to do. But today's thing is avoiding avoidance. So, like, the fact that, well, it could be argued both ways. I do need to learn how to step back, but I also need to learn how to engage. It's this interesting Zen duplicitous nature of almost everything that lately, where it seems that the answer is simply the answer. The answer is the doing of the thing, rather than like some grandiose thing. I keep having a problem where I want to default back to basically teenage years. I want to be this grand spectacle and, go above and beyond. So I end up trying to be something that I'm not. I'm trying to now avoid doing that, and now I'm trying to avoid the avoidance, and in so doing, stop trying, because the idea is trying in general is disingenuous. You can't try, you have to do. But how do you do without trying? Well, sometimes you have to try before you can do, because you have to be able to work yourself up to a point in which you can do effortlessly the things that have taken enormous amount of effort in the past. So where does that leave us? I guess it's a question of seeing how the day will go in any given day, rather than... And also, there's something to be said for trying to plan out the day, but also not being attached to the plan, because there's always the ability for something to come up. Again, it's the duplicitous nature. But I guess that's life, isn't it? You couldn't have balance without chaos. You couldn't have, life without death. You can't have good things without bad things. And today it felt like it was meant, quote unquote, meant to be a bad day. But I muscled through it, and as I have been doing recently, I find that I can convince myself of almost anything. And so I can muscle through my dreary states. Like today feels like an exceptional willpower day. Maybe it's the same as any other day. I just convinced myself of it. And then I could just use my willpower towards whatever, moving forward. I think it's also important to resonate, to listen to my body, because it tends to say things, and I tend to not listen to them. But there's also a certain overlap of it tries to say things. It and like my mind were both partially saying things that were against me, and it feels like they're now starting to work with me, or at least today they're working with me. And I don't want to capture today, because, well, that would be trying to hold on to something, and holding on to anything is not necessarily the way of moving forward. But at the same time, it's human nature to try and plan for the future, and also to stockpile things. But we live in an era where that is so very unnecessary, and yet we're still drawn to it, because we're afraid of letting go of the past, because we're afraid of forgetting, because we're afraid of repeating mistakes. But I think that as long as you actually learn what the mistake was in the first place, it is impossible to repeat the mistake itself, although you may make similar ones. So it's important mostly not to try and avoid mistakes, but to try and avoid the thing that caused the mistake in the first place.